Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 15 of Those Guys podcast. Troy, we have a special guest today. Let everybody know who's on with us.
Yeah, guys, welcome to our first episode of our coaches segment, where we're going to take some time to interview a couple of coaches in the area. So tonight's guest is a coach who turned the tide for a high school football program that has struggled in the past and has often been overlooked. He led Chaparral Lobos to a historic 8-4 season and their first semifinal appearance. So please welcome Coach Joseph Frias. Thanks for being here, Coach.
Awesome. Hey, gentlemen, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you guys, allowing me to come on the podcast. I can't wait for this and have some fun talking it up with you guys and chopping it up about the area and the borderland. And, like I said, thank you, gentlemen, for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. So Chris and I, we definitely don't take stuff like this for granted because it has been tough trying to get people on the show. So
I
we always get to this point, and then it's like something happens for whatever reason. It's happened to us, a handful of times. But now we appreciate you, giving us your time. So Coach, I know that you and your family are known pretty well in the Borderland area. I was wondering, can you kind of tell like our viewers like where you're from, what high school you went to, and kind of what sports you played back in the day?
Yes, sir. So I'm originally over from the west side of El Paso, Texas. My father's also actually been a youth coach and also a semi-professional coach here in the city of El Paso as well too. Me and my older brother actually started playing youth sports at 5 years old with my father with his team, from the youth program, and then we kind of just sat there and carried out our youth football sports and sat there and carried it into the middle school transition. I actually went to Lincoln Middle School, but I think it's called Don Haskins now here on the west side of El Paso. So just sat there, went to Don Haskins, or what we used to call Lincoln Middle School, and then I ended up going to a West Side powerhouse called Franklin High School over on the west side of El Paso. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with that high school, but it's a well-known big school right now. So
Oh yeah, no. Back in the day, obviously Las Cruces High, we used to play a lot of Paso schools. Back when my brother was going to school, they would always make trips to like Bel Air, Franklin, Montwood, all those Hanks, all those schools. So I always enjoyed playing in El Paso. I know that's not always the same for a lot of other people. I enjoyed it. I always felt like every school had their own unique personality because you got to play at their actual school, right? Like versus in Las Cruces, you're playing at the Field of Dreams,
yeah.
which is a nice stadium. It's a nice venue, but everyone shares it, right? So Chris and I, we played at like Eastwood. We played at the
Yeah.
SAC. So I will say there's a different atmosphere in El Paso, man. There's a lot of people that get excited for football around that area, and it's always usually a pretty fun time. Great teams, great athletes. So yeah, that's cool, man. That's awesome. So what would you say like really kind of got you into football? I know you said that you played in your dad's youth team and stuff, but what like kind of pulled you to that direction? Was he kind of just like, no, you need some you need to do something on your
You need
spare
to do
time
this
or
this
what?
way.
Yeah.
You know what? I was a multi-sport athlete, so I actually played football and then basketball, baseball, and then did track, So
Oh,
once I
wow.
got into the high school level, especially at Franklin, I mean, I still did all four, but at the same time, I really kind of toned in my focus, coming into my junior year, and my senior year on my varsity seasons, that's when I kind of knew I was like, okay, I'm going to be the quarterback. And then I also used to ride BMX bikes, and it was one week that I
Hmm.
sat there. It was a weekend, actually. I'm sorry. I got hurt, and it wasn't because of football. It was actually because of riding BMX bikes. And Coach
Mm.
Grijalva at the time, who's a famous Hall of Fame coach that also does podcasts and stuff, he went up to my dad and actually called him. He goes, "Mr. Frias, you got to come over here. I got to talk to you." And he goes, "Look, your son's a great athlete and everything, but he's got a choice. It's either football and him focus on that, or if not, he's got to go find out and do something else." So that's when I had a big conversation with my dad. And then after that, I just kind of sat there and I was like, you know what? Football is going to be the thing that I want to sit there and really, focus on. So I would have to sit there and say it was kind of that point in my life where I sat there and I was like, okay, you know what? I want to be a quarterback. I want to sit there and carry it on to the collegiate level and play some college ball as well too. So I would have to sit there and say at that point, my junior going into my senior year was when I really toned in and was like, hey, you know what? I can make something out of this. So yes, sir.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So my brother, I mean, he kind of did the same thing. He did baseball and football. Obviously, he played quarterback for Las Cruces High, and he wasn't going to go to college. He wasn't a very big dude. He wasn't going to go to college on that. Ended up having the opportunity to go to University of New Mexico, play baseball down there, got drafted. So it was kind of cool to see him go that process. Myself, I was just football. So I didn't have to worry about, focusing
Oh
on
yeah.
too much. So, but I mean, would you say like playing multi sports like that plays like a huge factor in like, I mean, a kid's character and like kind of how they handle themselves like on the field?
I think it did. I think it also taught me a lot about, just, toning into different sports, the different mentalities from different kids, because and you get a lot of aggressive kids, kind of, I would say, or physical kids more on the football side, as opposed to more passive kids on the basketball or baseball or track and stuff like that. So just, being able to sit there and being around different characters, different diversities and stuff like that, I think it really opened up the book of worms for me, as far as being able to handle that, learn from it, and then transition it. And as far as now, then now that I'm older and being able to coach that as well too. I think it's like anything else. Once you learn things, it's always good to give back, especially to the kids, especially once you see someone that you've taught something to and then they actually transition and they do it for you. It's kind of like, oh wow, he actually listened to me. So I think that's pretty neat and cool, from especially from the coach's standpoint, from the kids, learning and stuff like that from you. So definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Chris, I think you've kind of been in similar situations, right? Like you handle students all the time. You coached a little bit in middle school, you're a teacher now. I mean, is there any difference with the multi-sport athlete as well? Like, do you notice like any differences in like behavior and stuff, like how they carry themselves, like in your classroom?
Absolutely. Similar to what Coach Frias is saying. I mean, you see different types of kids, right? And I think for the kids that play multiple sports, they know how to interact with different types of personalities. Again, your more aggressive kids, your passive kids, and just really, and then also time management. My kids in my class that play multiple sports, they really know how to manage their time well. And they know, okay, I need to do this at this time, this at that time, because that's how after school is for them, right? They may have basketball practice or baseball practice or football practice, right? So
Yeah.
I definitely see a little bit more maturity with my multi-sport athletes in my class compared to my students that are dedicated to just one sport.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
Definitely. I think you Chris hit it right on the nail too. I think that's the whole point about being a student athlete as well too. You got to tone into being, dedicated to that part if you're going to want to sit there being an athlete because it all, ties in with each other. Because again, you got to have good grades if you want to sit there and be on the field or court or
Yes.
track or, anything like that. Then also too, I think it opens up the social skills as well too. Being able to talk, public
Yes.
speaking and that type of stuff, not being afraid to sit there and tone into, especially what we had to deal with our society with going through COVID and stuff like that with these kids. I became a teacher during that time. So I saw the effect of those kids being at home and, not really getting that interaction and stuff like that. So I think those are things that, like you said, just that being that multicultural and, different characters you could sit there and say, coming to the sports realm to sit there and bring what they have from their parents and what they learn and what they, believe in and respect, so I definitely think Chris, hit it right on the head right there, so.
Yeah, one thing that neither one of you guys mentioned is like the ass chewings, right? So,
Yeah.
Chris, Chris, you see me get my ass chewed out a lot by Coach Miller. Almost gave that dude an aneurysm a few times. But man, yeah, stuff like that. I'm with you guys, man. It builds character.
Definitely.
Yes.
I think some of the stuff, luckily I went through a good football program whenever I was going through high school. The guy, Coach Lopez, Coach Jaquist, Coach Miller, like having those guys in your corner, man, they were teaching you life lessons. Like they were going to be hard on you, but man, they wanted you to be a good person later on in life, and it wasn't just about you know football at that time. It was about being a good person, representing the school well, representing the team well. So yeah, I mean, I think I could definitely appreciate that. I think having a good mentor, like good coaches, good teachers. I mean, that's kind of a big deal, right?
And to
So
Definitely.
chime in and to chime into that, Troy, no, what I really appreciated about those coaches were just how dedicated they were to us. You have a bunch of 14 to 18-year-olds in there, immature, trying to figure out life. And our coaches were extremely dedicated to us. They were tough on us, but I always knew I could go to them and I always knew they were going to be consistent every day. And even if it was a middle of the summer practice, they were going to coach us hard, just like if it was a playoff game. So, or the
yeah,
state championship. So I really appreciated just how dedicated they were to us as kids. So
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
like you said it, sorry, Troy,
No, you're good.
I think Chris is right. I think time management, because again, you spend more time with those kids than the parents do, than with your own family. Like you said, your time management is everything. You're the first one in and the last one out, and those kids are pretty much the last ones that they see before they go back home to whatever it is they're going home to. So you try to sit there and, like you said, be a good mentor and someone that letting them know that this is a safe environment for them to be at and stuff like that. Then they could always sit there and be an open book with you and your coaches and stuff like that. So definitely.
yes,
Yeah, I think that's why a lot of kids, especially like their senior year, I went through this. I know that once like it all ended, and it was done, it's kind of like a shock, right? It's just kind of like, wow, like what's next? You know what I mean? I was pretty much caught up with all my credits, so I didn't have many classes on campus. You didn't really see anybody. You weren't going to. I mean, all I ever knew was practice, off-season workouts, hanging out in the field house, and getting yelled at by coaches. And once that wasn't a thing, luckily I was able to sign with Western New Mexico out of college, and I had that to look forward to. But even until then, you're kind of just sitting around and waiting. Yeah, I mean it's kind of unique, like how you brought up that point that you spend a lot of time in moments with your coaches, with those group of guys. So yeah, I think that's just something that a lot of other student athletes. Well, people don't realize a lot of student athletes will go through though as well. So, coach, after your high school career, you said that you played some college ball.
That's correct.
So where did you end up going?
So my first year out of high school, I actually took 2 years off, 2 year hiatus actually, and ended up going to junior college out in College of the Canyons. It's
Mhm.
in northern Los Angeles, California school. At the time, especially because back in the day, in my heyday when football was, I mean, it was growing, but it's not as consistent and as big as what they have nowadays. Junior college was the route I decided to go just because my older brother was out there. So I thought I was going to have a chance to sit there and play some football with him. But yeah, no, I ended up going to junior college out in College of the Canyons, and it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot of football. And I would have to sit there and also say that's also a big part of where I fell in love with the game because the coaches that I have right now, or I had at the junior college, are all actually D1 coaches right now. So a lot of them sat there and made that transition. So learning from them, had a big impact on me as far as learning the game, just a lot of the X's and O's and stuff like that. So I think also that's something that I picked on from them that really, held me accountable as far as learning the game of football. So, but yeah, so,
Yeah. Oh, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I'm
oh, no, no,
sorry.
you're good. You're good.
Uh, so yeah, I'm actually familiar with College of the Canyons. So back in high school, I was getting like little letters from them and stuff, and I was like, oh, okay, junior college in California. Now they were a powerhouse. For people that don't realize this, they were a powerhouse back then. Like,
Definitely.
I mean, you're talking about almost making national championships, or they might have won a couple
Yeah,
back in that
definitely.
time.
So during
But
my time, they were actually the 3-time or 2-time national champions when I was joining them when I first went out there as a freshman. So, yeah,
oh wow,
yeah,
yeah, and it's so I remember looking up videos. So recruiting videos and stuff weren't that big on YouTube. Like they don't show you the facilities or nothing like that. But I remember College of the Canyons is one of the few JUCOs that did, and you kind of got to see like their strength and conditioning program and everything like that. And I thought it was well put together for a junior college. And so I was like, huh, like maybe if these guys come up with an offer or something, I might consider that.
definitely.
So, I mean, and I know how the JUCO game works too. So once I went to Western, then I went to Mesa Community College in Phoenix
Sure.
and did that. And I mean, you go from like, kind of structure, you have dorms, you have a meal plan, you have this and that. And like, it just shows you where the game has changed so much because I remember going to that junior college in Mesa. And I mean, we're kind of a powerhouse in that conference as well.
Yes,
And
sir.
I mean, I don't think people realize like the amount of talent that shows up at these junior colleges. I mean, you get a lot of guys that may have got in trouble at these other schools. You get, guys that just didn't have the grades, to take their big D1 offers. But I mean, you're going up against guys that, are going to play in the Pac-12, SEC. I mean, it's real football. I know they hear that like community college title or the, College of the King, and they're like, what the hell is that at? You know what I mean?
That,
But there's some good football being played, and you'll learn. I mean, you'll learn a lot about the game. But
yes,
it kind
sir.
of just shows you though too, like I remember Mesa, it was kind of a little bit of a free for all when it came to like strength and conditioning. It was like you show up to the gym and you just go get a workout in,
Yes,
then we're
sir.
gonna go to the football field. So no, that's cool that you went there, and it
Yes, sir.
seems like it was real structured at College of the Canyons. And you said that you did a lot of learning, and a lot of learning of the X's and O's there, and that's pretty neat. What coach did you play for? What head coach?
So his name was Garrett Tujay. So he's actually
Mm,
the offensive line coach now at North Carolina State.
oh,
For yeah, so he's actually over there. He's
big
transitioning
dude.
and helping with the offensive line, and he does the recruiting as well for them. So I mean, like I said, a lot of my coaches, they're former, D1, or if not, they left to D1 colleges and stuff like that. So like I said, I learned a lot. And then College of the Canyons, they produced a lot. I want to say the reason why I decided to go there was I think we were averaging about 21 D1 scholarships per season coming out of there. And if not, if it wasn't D1, you had D1 AA, D2, or if not D3 schools just coming left and right, just handing us out scholarships. Like I literally remember because we had Jason Pierre-Paul on our team. I mean,
Oh,
he
dang.
just had
Oh, wow.
Division I scalp out there. Like I'm talking about 50 to, like 30 schools would at least come in during the whole entire week of practice just to come watch some of our athletes that we decided to have out there at College of the Canyons. So I think it also got me better as a person, because I'm looking at these guys, they're a lot bigger than me, El Paso, Texas kid. You don't hear about too much like coming out of El Paso, Texas, especially at that time. So I sat there and, I was like, you know what? I could play with these guys.
Yeah.
There's no difference between me and these guys, other than the fact, like you said, they just were kind of like me. We just miss out on our grades and stuff like that. Didn't, how to go that route as opposed to just, focusing on our grades or toning in, or if not, like you said, getting in trouble and stuff like that. So, I mean, it really sat there, like I said, sharpened me. And I was really thankful for those moments there at College of the Canyons.
Heck yeah. No, that's awesome. That's a cool story. But yeah, your head coach, he's a huge dude, right? Like I remember,
Huge,
yeah, I
huge.
remember watching that video that I was talking about earlier. His neck was just like, I mean, this guy was just all muscle. So I
So
don't
let
know
me
if he's still that big or not, but
Yeah, so let me just tell you. So I don't know if you guys remember BYU, was his name? Ty Detmer, the quarterback. He won the
yes.
Heisman Trophy. So he was actually the center at BYU for Ty Detmer when he won the Heisman Trophy and everything. So he just
Oh
had
wow.
stories. You would see his college pictures, like you said, neck out to here. I mean, I think he's about 6'6", maybe about a good 295, 300. I mean, just a
Damn.
guy that you don't want to just, you could tell he had some nasty to him. So.
Yeah, yeah. 6'6", and that's big for a center too. I mean,
Yeah, he's
that's
huge. He was
huge.
huge.
So, but I remember having peanut butter and jellies in my pocket to make me feel a little
Yeah.
heavier. So,
Good old
um,
PPJs. Yes,
yeah,
sir.
yeah, waking up in the middle of the night just trying to put on weight. So I was a
There you go.
smaller center, but yeah, no, that's cool. So after college, after College of the Canyons, you mentioned, how you guys are constantly getting offers. Did you continue that path anywhere
Uh,
else?
yeah, I actually did. So I actually got a full scholarship to the University of Nebraska in Omaha. So it was a D2 that was transitioning into Division One AA at the time. And so I actually went there my junior year. I got a full scholarship there. Was playing quarterback, but the crazy part about being over there at University of Nebraska is when I got there during our spring training time, four of our receivers tore their ACLs, like, and I would say in a matter of a 2-week period of our training time. So with
Mm,
that being said, we're getting crunch time right down to when the season was coming, and the coach was like, "Look, I've seen your film at JUCO. You're an athlete. You can run the ball, stuff like that. You can catch it. Do you mind, transitioning to slot for us?" So I ended up playing wildcat quarterback and then also playing slot receiver for the University of Nebraska at Omaha. So it was a lot of fun. And I told the coach, I was like, "Look, as long as I get to see the field, that's all. I don't care." So I
yeah.
have that type of mentality. So I sat there to help the team out by doing that. It was interesting, because I wasn't the one throwing the ball. I was out the one just trying to catch the ball in those type of situations. But that's where I ended up going after College of the Canyons was University of Nebraska in Omaha. So yes, sir.
So there's a lot of controversy with University of Nebraska Omaha. So they were going D1 at one point, and then they just like shut the program down, right?
Exactly. That's when I got there my junior year. So going into my senior year, the athletic director, I'm trying to think of his name because he was actually a former NFL first round pick, which was like mind blowing because you're an NFL football player, and then you decide to sit there and come into the program as the athletic director, and then take out the football program. So
Mm,
going into my
yeah,
senior year, I had to go find a different school because they got rid of the football program. So yes, sir.
that's
Oh, geez.
insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I know that. I mean, So a lot of so that happened with Simon Fraser University too, that school up in Canada. They were playing Division two, and then all of a sudden they just cut the program. A lot of people lost the year of eligibility. They're not able to play anymore.
Yeah.
So man, unfortunately, that's kind of a common occurrence. But it's kind of weird just because like you look at like old videos of University of Nebraska Omaha, and yeah, Division two, but like it's a cool atmosphere. The
Oh yeah.
stadium was jam packed. People One thing that I know about, people in Nebraska is they love their football. It doesn't matter if you're at Wayne State, Nebraska Kearney, wherever you're at, they're going to show up and support
They're
their
gonna
team.
show up. Exactly. Yeah. And I'll tell
So,
you what, that conference that I was the MIAA conference that I was playing in, I mean, even
yeah.
if you look at it nowadays, you have so much talent there. I mean, it was ridiculous. And the matter of fact, the reason why I went there was because Zach Thomas, who ended up playing tight end for the Chicago Bears, was the quarterback for University of Nebraska at the time. And if you go look at his highlights at UNO, you're gonna sit there and look at this dude. You'd be like, okay, I can see why he ain't transitioning in the NFL. I mean, just we had some dogs out there. I'm not gonna lie. It's
Yeah.
really good football. So.
Oh, yeah. I tell people all the time, I'm like, because we follow up with a lot of like Pitt State football, a
Yeah,
lot of those schools. And
Mhm.
I'm like, man, I'll tell you what, like Missouri Western, all those schools, they get after it. It's like, the
Northwestern, you
SEC of
got all
Division
of that.
two.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah,
Central Missouri, all those
there you
Missouri
go.
schools.
Yep.
I mean, that's kind of where I fell in love with like watching small school college football. Is like I think I watched like Northwest Missouri State one time in the national championship, and
Yes,
I
sir.
was just like, dang man, this is still legit college football.
It's
So,
kinda like
um,
the, what is his name right now? The Indiana coach, the Rick Cognotti, story,
or Signetti, yeah, yeah, yeah.
he ended up going to the small schools, JMU, working his way all the way up, into the big times, and stuff like that. Another name I'm going to mention because he actually tried to recruit me was Kalen DeBoer at the University of
Oh,
Nebraska of
wow,
Alabama. So
yeah,
he used to be at the University of Sioux Falls when I
yeah.
decided to leave University of Nebraska Omaha. So me and Kalen DeBoer were like having a huge good conversation. I ended up going to University of Sioux Falls a week right after I showed up, signed a full scholarship on campus. He ended up getting a D1 AA offer to go coach over there. He's like, "Laters, I'm going. See you guys."
Yeah.
That's my little story that I have about Kalen DeBoer, But I mean, just that whole area, Midwest, the Tri City area, Kansas, all the great football out there,
Yeah.
really good football. So,
Except it's cold weather. So, well, whenever
woo,
I left my junior college, I went to Benedictine College. It's about 45 minutes to an hour away from Kansas City. It's in the northeastern part of Kansas. And I remember Coach Larry Wilcox, he's a legendary coach in the NAIA level. And I remember him telling me, like, hey, man, I know you're in Arizona right now. I know you're from New Mexico, but we have a real winter here. So buy a jacket. I'm like, all right,
yeah,
whatever. I was always that fat kid wearing, a jacket and some shorts, like some cargo shorts, just kind of,
yeah.
walking around or whatever. And I tried to pull that stunt when I first got there, and I was like, oh my gosh. I was like,
Right over there.
this is cold.
Oh
No, I'm
yeah,
like, man, this wind is piercing my soul right now.
there you go.
So
I
yeah,
got
I'm
that
like,
wake up call when I was leaving because again, just like you said, coming from El Paso, the Southwest, going to California, LA boy, then all of a sudden back over to freaking, Nebraska, where it was, I think pretty much 5 feet of snow in one day, So I mean, it was just ridiculous, So yes, sir,
gets old after a while.
definitely.
So after your college career, like, what was the next step for you?
So I ended up getting some shots for the NFL, some tryouts and stuff like that. Got invited to some NFL combines. You know how they have different, combines and stuff like that, invitations. Well, at the time, just being a college kid, being out from El Paso, didn't really have the funds to make the trips to do that type of stuff. So
Yeah,
there was a team in Tulsa, Oklahoma called Oklahoma Thunder. And so after I didn't make any of the trials for NFL, they actually reached out to me and were like, "Hey, we're a traveling semi-professional team, so we need a quarterback. You can come to a tryout if you want." And so I was like, "Okay, why not?" So I ended up going over there, killing the tryout, as a matter of fact. So I ended up playing one full year for the Tulsa, Oklahoma Thunder, which is obviously in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Yes, sir. So
huh? That's funny. What a full circle moment. It's
yeah,
like that's where I'm at now. So, um, yeah, no, that's crazy. But yeah, I think I remember hearing stuff about that semi-professional team. Like they take that stuff real serious in this area,
real,
in this neck of the woods. I know Arkansas, they have some travel teams, and
yes, sir.
Texas, it's all the same thing. So
Yes,
that's
sir.
cool. Um, So what about like you had a Europe stint, right? So like
Yes, sir.
how did that go? Like how does that work?
Yeah, so of course, when I was playing for the Tulsa, Oklahoma team, of course, you're meeting a whole bunch of different people from areas and stuff like that. Of course, like me from Texas. So one of my buddies from California that ended up decided going out there to make the team with me, he's like, "Hey, I don't know if you know, but over in Europe, they're having a lot of football. It's growing over there, and they're going to pay you." And I was like, "Are you serious?" And he goes, "Yeah." So he goes, "There's a website, and it's actually called europlayers.com, and it's still around today, as a matter of fact. And that's how a lot of people over here from the States get picked up over there because it's just a big free agent website." So, yeah, me and my mom are always just like, "Hey, there's some football over in Europe." You know what I'm saying? Let's make myself a profile and let's just see where we can go. I would say within about 2 to 3 days when I made myself a profile from my semi-professional, putting on my college highlights, I think I had about like a full page of just like, "Hey, we want you as quarterback. When can you fly out here?" Da 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 da. So I ended up leaving Oklahoma and had a week to sit there before I ended up flying out to France, Paris, France, to go play semi-professional football out in Europe. So, and that was back in 13, and so ever since 2013, pretty much up into the pandemic, I was over in Europe, bouncing all over Europe, playing for what we call the ELF, which is the European League of Football over there. So it was an amazing time actually. So
Huh.
yes,
Yeah, that sounds cool.
yeah, definitely. Yes, sir.
Question, coach. So, what was the biggest culture shock leaving the States and playing in Europe?
To be honest with you, just you're in the United States, so when you hear about like France and Germany and stuff like that, you have all that history put in your mind. So I think it was just the language barrier, just sitting there
Oh,
and being able to communicate with people and stuff like that. I think that's what kind of sat there and held me back a little bit, just trying to understand what people were trying to say, especially when I went to France, because the France people, I mean, I love them and stuff like that, but at the same time, they really didn't like to talk English with you. So they was just kind of like, especially when they heard that you're American, they gave you a look like, "Okay, get away from me. I don't have time for you." So, I think that was one of the biggest things because again, too, you had to sit there and, obviously translate and talk and communicate with your teammates, but when they only know French, it's kind of hard to sit there and build a bond, or I would say have that communication, social skills with them. So I think that was one of the one things. And then of course, the living, time transition, the food, how they, do things around there, I guess was just getting acclimated to how they, the life goes, this lifestyle, I should say, the
sure.
Europeans have over
Yeah.
there. So definitely.
So like how exactly did they solve your living situation? I mean, like obviously, I recruit for my job now and it's like I could give a list of to applicants of like what apartments to check it out. Do
Yeah.
they do the same thing for you or is it
Yeah, so what was kinda neat about your contract, and this was what's kinda neat about over there is they have different levels to the European, football league as well too. So you have a 3rd level, a 2nd level, and a 1st level. They kinda treat it like soccer a little bit. So at all across all the levels, you're allowed to have, I think it's 6 Americans on your football team. So what
oh
they do
wow.
is yeah, it's pretty awesome. Well, awesome in another sense too, it makes you sit there and you're kind of you're the man, you're the Tom Brady of everything. So I kinda enjoyed, but they would sit there on your contract, they would pay for your apartment, your car, your insurance,
Oh,
your,
wow.
whatchamacallit, your, like, gym studio, and then, of course, your salary as well, you had that as well too, and then on some teams, they would actually give you, a 15-day, paid for vacation to go, like, to different, countries and stuff like that, and then the other thing that I thought was pretty cool was a lot of the teams had sponsors that were for, like, at restaurants and stuff like that, so during your time, you could sit there and restaurants would give you 2 meals out of the, week, to sit there and go eat at the restaurant, just to sit there and be around, take selfies, hang out with the people, get them to go to the restaurant and stuff like that. Or if not, like I said, it's just a free meal for you to go. So, but to me, I mean, it wasn't NFL football, it was a lot of D1 college cool stuff. But what I enjoyed was just being able to sit there and get on a train and I'm in a different country,
Yeah.
and on top of that was you played different countries, so you were never in the same spot. You were always bouncing around Sweden, France, Austria, Poland, all Spain. I mean, Italy. I mean, I was all over the place. So I really, really enjoyed it. It was a paid for vacation pretty much for 8 years, so
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. That's a good way to see Europe and stuff. So
definitely.
yeah, I know like I played ball with a couple guys that have done that route. I'm like, I see their Snapchat stories. I'm like, man, you guys are living it up. So
Definitely.
so that's cool. And then one thing that I've also kind of noticed too, like there's leagues overseas that are starting to pick up everywhere. So now they have one in like Brazil, they got one in, Mexico, they got
Yeah.
Australia. So that's cool that there's those options, especially for those smaller school guys that want to continue to keep playing. And like me and Chris joke about this all the time. We see a lot of these semi-pro guys, like in their 40s, like mid 40s, still going at it and showing up to practice. I'm like, bro, like you get hurt, man. You got work tomorrow.
I was about to
Like
say, yeah, you still got a little work tomorrow, right? Definitely.
yeah. Yeah. So, Chris Love every now and then still tries to suit up. I'm like, hey man, I don't think that's gonna be covered. So
No, I
Hey,
think that's
it
huge,
never
Troy,
leaves you,
but
because even with me, I was always a player's coach, even at Chaparral, the one thing I always did with the kids, they're like, "Coach, you played and everything." I'm like, "Dude, you guys don't want none of the smoke." You know what I'm saying? I mean, like you guys don't want none of this. I'm a Texas boy. You know what I'm saying? I'm a different breed than you guys. So I'd go out there and play quarterback, or even at the times when our quarterback wouldn't show up for practice, I'd be like, "Get over there, hurry up!" Like, "Coach, you don't got pads on." I'm like, "I don't need pads. I'm gonna run over you guys." So he's doing that stuff, being the player's coach, like I think the game never leaves you, and I think that's also a big reason why I became a coach, just even right now, I'm a stay home dad, but I get the itch to sit there and I want to be on that football field, I'm that 50-yard line, bury me there, all day. So
yeah, yeah. No, we're the same boat. So like we try to check out football wherever we can. I mean, even just going to the
yeah,
stadium, it feels awesome. So,
we just
but I'm right there with you with that competitive nature and stuff. I have to do like community engagement events. So I'm over there hanging out with a whole bunch of kids, and
yeah,
we're playing like a two-hand touch game of football, and man, I'm lighting these kids up, dude. So it
definitely.
makes me feel good about myself. I'm like, all right, I still got it, right? So
What's even funny is, like I was telling you about that website, the europlayers.com and everything, till this day, and I'm even 41 years old, it even says it on my profile. I still get teams that are like, "Hey, you want to play some football?" And I'm like, "Dude, I will sit there and I'll give you about a quarter, and then I'll be tapping out, like I'm done."
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
definitely.
man, that's awesome.
Yes, sir.
So, all right. So now, I kind of want to obviously just dive into like we're talking about 4 years. I know we talked a little bit about this before, we started recording, but Chaparral went 4 years without winning a game, right? And
Yes,
then,
sir.
in a few of those years, they didn't even score a touchdown. So like, can you kind of let us know like how Chaparral and like why Chaparral? I mean, a lot of people would see that and be like, "Ooh, man, that's going to be a lot of work or impossible."
Um, I think one of the things is you always got to challenge yourself. And I felt like if I sat there and I can go to a place like that and coach some kids that I probably have never even dealt with football in the sense of the way that I have, and do something with it the way I did, I felt like I did, something that people said that could not be done. For me, I set goals, I set challenges all throughout my whole life. And one of the things that I wanted to do and challenge myself was to be a high school football coach. And I sat there and, with the opportunity with, like you just said, having a 48 losing streak, I just knew in my mind that I could be a difference if I had that opportunity. When I first got there, I was just an assistant, but the kids, I love my head coach at the time, Coach Rojas. He was a great guy and stuff like that, but I felt like the kids knew that they could see and feel how much passion and how much heart I put into the game.
mm,
And I think that also transitioned to me to sit there to become the head coach as well during that time when I was an assistant, and then ended up getting the job, for the past 3 years here at Chaparral. But just, that mindset, the mentality of always being a winner my whole life and stuff like that, like I said, just having different opportunities with the things that I've learned, from high school at Franklin all the way up to my semi-professional career. I just sat there and I took what I've learned and just sit there and try to apply it to the kids, and see what I could do with it. So I think that was the one thing that I was just trying to challenge myself in the sense that I wanted to, if I could be able to do that type of stuff. And if I did, I knew if I could coach there and win there, then I know if I go to a Mayfield or a Franklin or Coronado or stuff like that, then sky's the limit what I could do there.
Yeah.
yes. So, Coach, so following up with what you said, when you first took over as the head coach of Chaparral, what did you have to change first? What was kind of the identity there, and what was the first thing you had to come in and change?
Oh, To be honest with you, that was a big challenge. When I first, especially like I said, when I was a varsity assistant coach and everything, the culture around there was, a lot of thug mentality, a lot of, oh, the football players are bad kids, they don't
Mm,
listen, they don't, it was just a big, culture shock in the sense that the kids that didn't have anyone that cared about what they were doing. They didn't have anyone to sit there and push them in the sense of, hey, football can only go so far. You need to get an education. So I think that was the first thing that I sat there and I had to really tone in was when I became the head coach, I just really had to put my foot down and sit there and say, hey, look, you're going to do it my way and you're going to listen to my way and trust my process because if you do, we're going to do something special with this. Some
mm,
kids, they didn't like it because they felt like they were just superior and just so used to the way that coaches were before. So when I actually came to put my foot down and everything, some kids, they left the team, even though they were great talent and everything. It was just one of those that, hey, you either buy in or if not, then I don't need you because the ones that are going to buy in, you're going to sit here, you're going to get good. I'm going to teach you football. I'm going to teach you how to be, like you said, and we talked about earlier, good men in life and all that type of stuff, build good character, lifestyles, all that type of stuff, because, at the same time, they're a reflection of you. And if you want to be a professional and be someone that's good and everything, I think that's also going to carry on to your kids as well. So I think just changing the character with the kids is something that I had to really sit there and go in and do for that high school and program. So
that's good, coach. And then following up with that, coach, Troy and I, we grew up in Las Cruces and not a super big city, but at least in the borderline area, it was big enough. And we always had the benefit of growing up in Mayfield and Cruces and these well-established programs. And, everything was in place when we went there and we benefited from that. But coach, we know that in smaller towns, it's a little different. And a lot of people don't know kind of how small towns work, especially with their athletic programs. So, what is something that most people don't understand about coaching football in a place like Chaparral?
um it's that small town community, like you said, a lot of things that sat there and I think that, maybe you guys had out there. A lot of the kids don't drive, they had to walk to
Mm,
school, or if not, they sat there and they took the bus, or if not, a lot of the kids that I also had to sit there and deal with in my 3-year tenure was not a lot of at home presence. There was a lot of kids that lived with aunt or uncle, or if not, there was just a single income family hold at the student's house, where it was only dad at the house, or if not, it was only mom raising him and stuff like that. So I think just sitting there and, getting a good bond with the kids, building that and understanding the fact that you don't get that whole I got a parent that's gonna come and hand me some money for donations and stuff like that. I was scraping at the bottom of the barrel trying to get kids to organize, carpools, stuff like that, just because, at the same time, you don't get those big numbers. I didn't have a lot of high poverty in the community and stuff like that. There wasn't, like I said, at home support. So those were the things that I had to sit there with my coaching staffs, bring to those kids and make them, understand, like I said earlier, this is the safe environment. This is for you to come
mm.
to a place that, hey, you can get away from that at home and come over here with me and hang out with me for this time and learn something from me and hopefully carry that on to and into whatever you're gonna do in the future. So, I think that was a big challenge for me. So, yes, sir.
Good, coach. Was it hard to get the community support, or did it happen right away?
Woo, that was another one too. I mean, my first year, new coach and everything, I took over the program. To be honest with you, I went 0-9. So, I
Mm,
mean, it went from like having maybe about 8 to 10 parents in the stadium to maybe like half of the stadium filled up. So they kinda sat there, were questioning me, at the beginning, but then our 2nd year, they sat there and they saw how much, I mean, literally, we ended the season, I think, in November. I went to work again right in December. So it was a year-long transition that once I went from 0-9, I was like, "You know what? We just need to work more." So I think that was the one thing. Once they saw how much time I spent out in the community, and it was obviously more than where I was from here in El Paso, I think that's when they started to sit there and be like, "Hey, this guy's for real." He's out here all the time. Look at what he's doing. He's spending his weekends out here because I used to go Monday through Saturday, out there with the kids. So I think once they saw that, and then once I started showing my face around to the community, I used to go to different restaurants, different businesses and stuff like that. Or if not, tell the parents like, "Hey, I need your help. I want you to get involved in stuff like that." So once they started seeing that I was reaching out to them and wanted them, that's when they started. I think it was about my 2nd year when I was a head coach where I decided to finally get, a lot of the support and stuff like that. And I think what another thing that was hard over at Chaparral, they never had a booster club.
Mm.
You know?
Ooh, yeah.
So, one of the first things that I sat there, my second year was like, we gotta have a booster club because that's how it's gonna get more of the community and the families involved and stuff like that. So my second year, once we got the booster club going, it was like, boom. It was like a rocket, we just shot up, more people got involved, more of the families got involved. It brought them more like, "Hey, I need your cousin because I need someone to hold the chains. I need someone to do the clock." So, I mean, stuff, especially as a head coach, you need someone to do that stuff, so and it gives the people an opportunity to sit there and be a part of the kids and sit there and say, "Hey, I was there." Because that's another thing too, is I think a lot of the parents, they sit there and they just kind of like, well, go with Coach Frias, he'll watch you, babysitting time, as opposed to, no, let me go and support my kid. So I think that was another big part. So yes, sir.
Yes. And coach, we can tell you're a very passionate guy, especially about football, especially about the kids. So with that, was there a moment or maybe a game or a part of a season where you were like, wow, we're really turning the corner and we're becoming a winning program?
Yes, sir. Last year going into I think it was about our last game, we figured out that we might have a chance to make playoffs for the first time in history. Even though we were 4-9 at the time, it's kind of weird how New Mexico works with that, especially with that type of record. You're like 4-9, how can you make the playoffs? But even with, like I said, snapping that 48 game losing streak, we went to Portales and we had just lost to Portales. I think it was like 35-7 the week before. So we got a chance, an opportunity to play them again. And it was cold. I think it was about -10 degrees up in Portales, New Mexico. And just the way that we went up there, the bus ride, kids were focused and everything like that. We just went in there and ended up beating them 10-0. And from that point on, because that was my second year going into the head coaches, that's when I knew the kids are listening to me. They believed in me. They believed in the process. And that's when I knew, hey, this is the turning point for you guys. Because a lot of those kids, too, I didn't have a huge senior class. A lot of the kids were a lot of my sophomores, freshmen, and juniors playing up on varsity. So I think once they sat there and they got that feeling of winning, that's when they knew, okay, we can do something with this. We can play with these kids. Yes, sir. I think that was the turning point for us in the program.
That's good, coach.
Sir.
That's good.
Hey, Chris, I don't mean to interrupt, but I have a follow-up question just because I know we kind of grazed on this a little bit. I know you said like the mentality when you first got there, obviously morale is on an all-time low or people just don't care. It's just non-existent. But man, like, how did you go after the right kids for that program? Because me and Chris, we talk about this all the time. We went to like Oñate versus Mayfield, and we noticed the numbers have dwindled for Mayfield. And then Oñate, I mean, they have a decent sized team, but we're walking around the stands and we're seeing decent sized kids, kids that should
Hmm.
be sticking their hand in the dirt and with with the foot with a helmet and playing out there in the field, like we're seeing those kids, they're just not having an interest anymore. So like obviously going into like a program like a Mayfield or Chaparral, like you want to recruit those kids. Is there like was there a specific way that you did that? Was there was it kind of just like, well, take what I can get? Like what was it, what was the
So,
process like?
well, the neat thing about that was my first year, I was on campus when I got hired as the head coach and everything. And to be honest with you, I just put on my, Nick Saban cap and was just walking up and down the hallways, grabbing those big kids, grabbing kids that were multi-athlete sports and saying, I was selling them a dream. I was literally just like, hey, if you be a part of this, you come out, you trust in me. I'm going to get you a scholarship. I'm going to get you notice, I'm going to get you out of this community, because when you sit there and you actually go to the community of shop around, you look at it, it's like, okay, you got two choices. You're going to live here or if not, you're going to get out of here, so,
Yeah.
and that's one of the things that I always fed the kids. I'm like, do you want to sit there and go do what your mom and dad are doing? Or do you want to sit there and be a part of something different that no one's ever done before and have an opportunity and chance to, you know, be a part of something special. And I think that's where the kids sat there and they really, like, hey, Coach Frias, he's great. You know what I'm saying? He's not lying to us. He's really buying into this. And I think that's what it kind of did. The kids started, it was like a cancer. They just started sitting there and going after those kids. They were like, hey, he used to play with us in middle school, but because we were losing so much, he stopped playing. But now that you're bringing that winning mentality, coach, we can bring him back. And I think that's what happened. A lot of these kids sat there and were just so used to that losing mentality that they were like, why do I want to go play for someone that's losing all the time? But once we started winning, I mean, left and right, hey, coach, can I come play football? Coach, can I come play football? It went from watching kids when I would pull up to the school playing soccer to sitting there and throwing the football around. So, I mean, just the love and the fact that we used to fill up the stands and stuff like that, I think that was the big transition, just being on campus, having coaches, around as well too, because we were very multi-diverse on my coaching staff. A lot of the guys played D1 or stuff like that. Or if not, they played semi-professional coaches as well. So they would come in and walk on campus and we would just recruit kids left and right. And I
Mm,
think a lot of the times too is we would catch them with their parents. So
yeah.
not only did we sit there and go after the kids, we would talk to the parents and hold the parents accountable as well too. Be like, no, no, no. I remember I saw you. You told me you're going to get Johnny to come out here and play with us. So then I think that's what also held me accountable. So yes, sir.
Yeah. Chris, one more
And
follow-up, sorry,
yes.
just before I forget it. So how did your guys' strength and conditioning program look? I mean, obviously, I know that you told me that you were experiencing some challenges where you didn't even have, like, a football class offered to you. So, like,
Yes.
how did that work out? I mean, like
So usually right now, February through March is when we would just nonstop grind. We would just that's all we would do is live inside the weight room class, especially since we didn't have a football class and everything. I would just make the kids, literally work out from 4:10 to probably about 6:20 at night. So we would take it as an after school program, or if not, some of my assistant coaches would come in at like 7 o'clock in the morning because nowadays the kids go in at 8:55. So we had enough time in the morning as well too to sit there and grab some of the kids, take them in the weight room, or if not, eyes tell bass, or with the other big thing I'm really big on is plyometrics training.
Mm,
You don't even need to
yeah.
have weight room, I mean, weights and stuff like that. So we did a lot of band work, plyometric training and stuff like that. So those were the little things that I think that also the kids weren't used to having that we really toned in and I brought into the program that the kids were like, the coach, this is helping me out a lot. So flexibility, mobility, I think all that stuff, it played a big part into that, as far as what me and the coaches, because we all played professional football, or if not, D1 and stuff like that. So I think all of us mixing our brain together, brainstorming on like different ideas, different days, that's what kind of helped the kids, because it was never the same routine. It was always something different. We always brought to each week, I would sit there and say, so yes, sir.
Yes. And coach, I appreciate your method of how you recruited the kids and just how you went about your program because I coached at the middle school level, 8th grade, and I saw that works with the kids when they can trust you and they feel like you're going to lead them to a better situation. And with the group that we were coaching, obviously we sold them on preparing them for high school. So, once we built that trust and that camaraderie amongst the kids and showed them, no, what we're showing you, it's going to give you an advantage when you go to high school ball. We saw the results, we saw the desire, we saw the passion. So I really appreciate what you're doing and or what you were doing with the kids. It's great.
Yes, sir.
With that being said, coach, what is some advice you could give maybe a young coach or an up and coming coach who their first coaching gig might be at a smaller school or a school that doesn't have a strong football tradition? What is some advice you could give them?
If I had to sit there and tell any of the future coaches, is be consistent. I think consistency is one of the things that we lack nowadays, just because everything is so given to us, with technology and stuff like that. Being consistent, being relentless, being on top of the kids, having no back down. I would sit there and say, you got to really be strict and firm and confident in yourself. And,
Mm,
those are the characters and things that once they see inside you, I think that that's going to transition into the kids as well, So I think, just being stern, letting the kids, you wanna have that player coach mentality with the kids, but you wanna set a fine line between knowing, "Okay, there's a time that we're gonna joke around and be friends, but then there's a time that I'm gonna be your coach, and you're
yeah,
still the kid." And I think you just gotta sit there and make that line, really define for the kids and make them understand that, you're there for them no matter what. But I think again, like I said at the beginning, just being consistent, that's the one thing that helped me. Like I said, showing the kids that I'm there Monday through Saturday for them,
mm,
even on my time off, it really played a big part because, like I said, you deal with a lot of kids that go home and you don't know what they're dealing with, So
yeah,
then again, you know, y- I might be their reason why they want to get away from home. So I think those are the things of be some kids' why of reasons of good reasons, in life. So I would sit there and say that. But I think that's a great question.
Yeah, no, I will say that like I've chimed in on some of the highlights of your last game, or it was I think I don't know, it was your last home game, I think, and the stadium was packed. Kids
Yes, sir.
are everyone was going wild. So I mean that I think that's something cool to see because
Yeah.
it's never been that way.
Yes, sir.
And for those of you guys that are listening right now, and those of you guys, I mean, we have some guys in Oklahoma that follow up with this, but Chaparral, I mean, the city of Chaparral or the town of Chaparral, it's tiny and there's nothing out there. It's just all desert and people are just kind of, living their lives out there doing, probably working El Paso or commute to Cruces or Anthony, whatever the case may be. So what what was done? I know earlier I mentioned, 8-4 and then, went to their first semifinals. It is a big deal for a program like that, that has never obtained any type of success in that nature. And I don't care who you are. If a coach is willing to take that over, I mean, that's impressive. And do what you
It
did,
is.
to be able to accomplish what you accomplished out there, that's impressive. So,
Yes.
like I said
Thank
from
you.
the very beginning, it caught my attention, which is why I wanted to reach out and, get you on. Um, but so moving forward from like, the season, after a stressful season and, like, is there any hobbies or type of activities you like to kind of engage in? You know what I mean? Like to kind of just decompress?
Yeah, right now, I'm on hiatus right now. I did ended up deciding to resign from the program. Just some things didn't work out for me. But right now, I do have two little ones at the house. A 5-year-old and a 2-year-old that are just keeping me on my toes. And I would sit there and say they're pretty much my hobbies right now. Other than the fact that I just still watch football. I actually have a little nephew who's up in Las Cruces. He goes to Centennial.
Oh, okay.
So
Heck yeah.
he's a freshman up there. So I'm really I've loved football. To be honest with you, a lot of people don't know this about me, but I've been 35 years of my life I've been doing football. So
Oh.
if tomorrow football doesn't exist in my life, I think I'll be okay and happy with it. That's the one thing, I'm really enjoying the time off right now, getting more time to being a family man, spending it with my little ones and stuff like that. I think it's really good. I am looking for more work and stuff like that. I do, like I said, I talked to you guys earlier, I am itching to get back on the football field because, it is a part of me and something that I love to do and to give back to kids, and stuff like that. And obviously do something like I did with Chaparral and, just give kids an opportunity. I love building a bond with kids and seeing them grow and I think that's the one thing that also attracted me to be a coach, because for me, I was always in sports like I talked about, so being around coaches all my life, it made me sit there and want to become one. I think that's one of the things that I could just sit there and that I'm really thankful for. So yes, sir.
Well, coach, with like your background and what you accomplished in Chaparral, I mean that's something that you should definitely be proud of and hold your head up high on and an opportunity will open up. I mean, El
Yes, sir.
Paso's
Yes.
crawling with different schools.
Definitely.
So an opportunity will open up, but yeah, I mean, enjoy that time with your kids. What I'm starting to figure out as a new dad too is like the time goes by so quick.
Yes, sir.
I'm already, my 3-year-old's about to turn 4, and well, my 1-year-old just turned 1. So it
Yeah.
goes by it goes by so quick, and man, yeah, so if I could find something that, I was able to enjoy my time with them a little bit more, I would definitely take advantage of that because there's nothing more important than your family, but
Definitely.
be happy with what you did. I'm sure you changed a lot of lives, and I think that's something a lot of people don't realize is when you go to a program like that, you hit some really good points of where, these kids are coming from a broken home and that is their only escape is, playing
Yes, sir.
sports. So having that, just kind of having that thing to look forward to at the end of the day, I mean that's something special. But it was cool to see what you guys accomplished this year. And congrats. And like I said, an opportunity will open up with you in the future. I know it. And so I'm excited to see what you're gonna do.
Definitely. Yeah, the community of Chaparral is always going to have my heart. They're the first ones that gave me an opportunity and chance. I'm very thankful. As you can see, I still love them. I still represent them, and stuff like that. I think they felt like I was kind of leaving them in the sense that I don't want to be a part of them, but you know how it is. It's just, like we said, we don't get that time back with our little ones and stuff like that. So to be a family man and stuff like that right now, it's worth it and stuff like that. I know I told them because we just had our banquet recently and stuff like that. I told them I'm always going to be a part of you guys, because look what we did. We made history there too, because that was actually the first time that they ever went to the playoffs. It was my 2 times back to back when I was the head coach and everything. So, like you said, building those memories, those bonds with the community and stuff like that. And who knows, like I told the principals and stuff like that, I don't want to burn the bridge because you never know if I want to come back out here and stuff like that. So that's one thing I'm always thankful for them, to have a good bond and relationship with them as well too. And you never know, I might be coming out to cruises for you guys, helping you guys get to the championship,
Heck yeah, man. Yeah. So
I
Yeah.
got a crazy story
Hey.
for you guys too. So back in 2003, Las Cruces High was the two-time state champs, and Franklin got invited over there because that was the first time that they started doing El Paso versus New Mexico and everything. So I ended up beating Las Cruces High in overtime, because those guys something else, you know what I'm saying? I think they were D1 across the board because, like I said, they were two-time, back-to-back state champs going on to their third. So that game was just, I remember just going home. My mom's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "Those New Mexico boys, they beat me up, man." Yeah, no, that
yeah,
was
no,
crazy.
those early teams, man, they were built differently for
Yeah,
sure. So,
definitely.
They were.
but no, I always enjoyed watching the El Paso schools play. I've always enjoyed playing in El Paso.
Yeah,
I think it's a fun little rivalry that we have because people don't realize like how close we truly are, but how
yeah,
different it could be, right? So, I mean, Chris and I, we just went to the Sun Bowl a couple weeks ago. Had a great time there. So, it's
Yeah.
always a good time in El Paso.
yes, sir.
But like I said, the football out there, the atmosphere, it's different. It's nice. It's fun. So,
Yeah.
but that's
Well,
funny.
tell you what, even them, Las Cruces, they had their chance. They were in the state championship. I thought they were going to to be honest with you, before they even went in the game, I was like, nah, Cruces, the way they're playing right now, I think they're going to pull it off. But I mean, it was a
Yeah,
great game. If you sell
It
that
was a
game, it was
game.
a great game,
man,
so
when they beat Cleveland early on in the season, I was pretty pumped up about it, and I kept telling my wife, I'm like, "Hey, this is you're watching an early state championship. This is what
yeah,
it's going to be, when state comes around." And
definitely.
so, seeing that state game, I was hoping Coach Lopez was going to get it. Man, it was a killer. So,
Yeah,
um, but yeah, it sucks, but I know those guys will bounce back. But man, they had talent all across the board. It was
yes,
fun to
sir.
watch them play this year. So yeah,
I have a
we'll
question
see.
about how do you guys feel about Diego Pavia, since he was a New Mexico State boy and him doing now his whole thing and his stock rise up and down, his character and stuff like that. How do you guys feel
So,
about that? So
so
Chris, I'll let
funny
you
thing.
start this one off.
Yeah. So funny thing is he was our guy all season, right?
yeah,
Troy and I, he definitely followed him when he was at New Mexico State, went to a few games. We were excited. We definitely were fans of Andy when he was the quarterback there. And he was actually our inaugural those guys player of the year. So that shows how much we were fans of him. And of course, obviously some of the antics we didn't necessarily care for, but
definitely,
nonetheless, as a competitor, we really appreciate him and we're always going to be fans of Diego Pavia. So
definitely, definitely.
Yeah, I will say for me, like whenever he took Nimi to the national championship and seeing him play, I was like, man, this kid's good. Because I used to follow up with all those small schools just because Nimi was in the conference that I played in, at the JUCO level. So, and of course, if a New Mexico team's in the national championship, I'm gonna follow up with it, right?
mhm.
So once he went to New Mexico State, I was like, oh, okay, he's gonna be a solid dude. Well, that was like, Jerry Kills in his first year. And I saw the staff that Jerry Kill brought, and I saw that he brought Tim Beck. I'm familiar with Tim Beck because he won the national championship with Pitt State. And
Definitely.
I was like, he's gonna have a fun offense. They brought in guys like, Tony Sanchez, because all these guys were at TCU before helping out Gary Patterson.
Yeah,
So he brought that entire staff over, and I'm like, I think people are underestimating how legit this
they're gonna
this
be
coaching
good.
staff is.
Yeah,
Like, because I followed up with Jerry Kill since New Mexico State beat them in Minnesota, and he had that seizure on the sideline and everything, and that's kind of what I followed up with him. And I was like, dude, he's a solid coach. He has a pretty good track record, and
definitely.
yeah, it's crazy to see him, go to New Mexico State, build the team that he did, and obviously the first year, what people don't realize, like their first year, they were like 1-5, right? So,
Yeah,
and Diego Pavia was splitting time with Gavin Franks, and people didn't realize like Diego didn't win the battle like right out the gate, and he kind of progressed throughout the season, and then just had a phenomenal. I remember one game that stood out was whenever they beat Hawaii, and then I should say two games that stood out when they beat Hawaii, and then they go to Liberty and beat the crap out of
yeah,
Liberty, and that was the turning point for them And so they went to that bowl game. They lucked out. Got to play Bowling Green. And once Diego Pavia won that, I was like, dude, that dude's legit.
You're really
And
legit,
so
right?
yeah, and then that next year, I go down there to go watch the UMass versus New Mexico State game, and then they get their butts kicked against UMass. I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go again, you know?
Roller coaster ride, right? Yeah. No,
Yeah.
definitely.
And then after that, they get hot, and I'm seeing Diego Pavia just light it up, and I'm like, this offense is perfect for him.
Yeah.
And when they go to Auburn, wasn't expecting that. I even told people, like, man, it sucks that their win streak is about to come to an end. They go out and knock off Auburn. I'm like, damn, you know. So, uh,
Right.
so
Yeah, that's
it was
you
kind of
kinda knew that this guy's gonna be the real deal, right? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So funny story, like whenever he transferred to Vanderbilt, I was heartbroken, right? But I was still following up on like Twitter and stuff. I saw it coming, but a whole bunch of people were chiming in on like, well, I don't know why Vandy's picking off all these Conference USA people. They got the head coach and the offensive coordinator and a whole bunch of players. Like, it's not going to translate to the SEC. And I literally got in a Twitter fight and I bookmarked this whole conversation because I knew I was going to revisit it one day, right? And
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
like, ooh, I'm like, actually, I'm like, this is actually a perfect style of offense for Vandy,
Yeah.
because they're not going to get your typical Alabama guys and,
There you
all those
go.
guys in Texas. I'm like, they're going to utilize the entire field. They're going to get some athletes out there. They need a quarterback that can throw the ball, but could also be an athlete and make some plays on his feet. And sure enough, I had some people like, I mean, people were cussing me out, talking about how much of an effing idiot I was, this and that. And they were like, you want to bet this season? I'm like, man, I don't like, I ain't gonna bet, but I was like, we can revisit this conversation in November. So November came around. I went to go revisit that conversation. I had a bunch of people blowing me up,
Oh,
blocking
yeah.
me. So, so, it was great, but it was cool
They
to see
got
a
on their
full circle
feelings, I
moment.
bet.
Oh, bad, bad. But it was cool to see a full circle moment for that kid. I mean, regardless of his antics, he needs to mature a little bit, yes, but the kid was a Heisman runner up. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
From New Mexico, from Albuquerque, went to New Mexico State, and I think they had like 5 or 6 guys playing in the Senior Bowl this last weekend that,
Yeah.
5 of them were at New Mexico State before. So it's cool, man. I'm a huge Diego Pavia fan, and obviously he's 5'9". People ask me all the time, you think he's going to do anything in the NFL? I can't answer that, but I hope he just has an opportunity and he shows out and he makes the best of his opportunity.
That's it. That's all you gotta do with, the things that you get in life, just take the best of it.
Yeah. Yeah,
And also another
definitely.
question for you guys. Now you guys supposed to be asking me the questions and everything, but how do you feel about the NIL deals going around in college, and how that's transitioned and changed the game? Because, as a head coach being at high school level, the one thing I wanted to get into was college. But then all of a sudden, with the head coach and, college is always calling me and talking to me and, me trying to pick their brain, the one thing is trying to get a kid that you like we were talking about, be consistent at being at that college. Because again, you got a kid that's a standout at UTEP. He has a freshman year that's amazing. Hey, here's Kalen DeBoer at Alabama or Vanderbilt, stuff like that. I got a $100,000 scholarship to get you away from that sunny city. Well, why not? You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it's changed the game a little bit. It's changed the realm and everything. How do you guys feel about it?
So I'll start. So Troy and I've had many conversations about this. I'm all for players, making money off of their name, image, and likeness, but there has to be rules because at this point it's semi-pro, right? And they need to have a commissioner. I believe they need to have rules. We talked about maybe moving the start of the season to maybe mid-August and
Yeah,
just really, really setting it up to where there are structures and everything in place so it's not a free for all. Maybe something Troy and I talked about maybe something they could do is having like a transfer limit rule. You get one free transfer, then after that,
yeah.
you have to sit out a year, or maybe you get 2 transfers max and you
There you
know,
go.
all sorts of stuff because if they keep on this way, it's in my opinion, it's going to ruin college football.
Yeah,
So there has to be good quality rules put in place to where the players can still make money, they can still profit off of their name, image, and likeness, but at the same time, they're not just leaving every 5 seconds or they're not leaving right before the national championship or the playoff.
right.
We don't like that. So there definitely has to be a system put in place.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. Something has to be put in place. I want these guys to profit from their, their name, image, and likeness. I mean, I watched that Johnny Manziel documentary, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
it's kind of messed up. Like he kind of, he did kind of build that program and build that
Right.
stadium and added that, staple in Texas A&M, and he was making a ton of money for the school, and wasn't able to touch any of it. You know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
they weren't giving him anything. So with stuff like that, I disagree with, and I do think that they should be compensated. But I will say it is, I don't know. I don't know the answer. I don't think anyone does right now, but there has to be some stipulations on the transferring thing, because
Hmm.
back whenever I had to do it, like you had to go the JUCO route. So you could basically say JUCOs are like not a factor anymore, right? Just because, I mean, they're still around, but it's probably not as competitive anymore, because you could literally build your team every year off these, off the transfer portal.
Yeah.
And yeah, just stuff like that. I was telling you earlier, like going, whenever I was at a junior college, I mean, I knew guys that they were just hoping to get somewhere that had dorms, a meal plan, you know what I mean, and some free
Exactly.
gear. That way they have stuff to wear, you know what I mean? And it's it's crazy to kind of see where, like college football landscape has gone, and it just shows you how much money was involved this entire time. But yeah, so I don't know. I don't know the answer to like what they can do, but something needs to be done, because I don't like watching. I love watching bowl games. I think they're fun. I think we could probably do away with a few of them. But I like watching the New Mexico Bowl. I think it's a good bowl. I think you got to give stuff to those teams. You got to give them something forward to look, or something to look forward to in the future and
Yes,
play
sir.
for, right?
Definitely.
So, but yeah, I just think that, they just need to kind of restructure some of this stuff. And obviously there's a lot of money being thrown around right now, and hopefully they get it all ironed out.
Well, I'm gonna blow
Yeah.
your mind a little bit too, because again, just being the high school coach and everything. Well, they just in New Mexico just made a 1-year transfer rule to where you can transfer anywhere you want for free without getting penalized and stuff like that. As a matter of fact, in a few states, Florida, Georgia, where else? I think it's
Oklahoma, I think.
Oklahoma. Now you're getting the NIL deals now going down over there as
Yep.
well too. So I mean, it's a can of worms that I don't know if we're ready for. But I think we definitely need some structure, because again, I think it hits at home with kids that, well, I'm not going to play for you unless you pay me, coach. Because then we're going to start
Yeah.
getting that mentality at kids that are 17 and 18 years old that don't have life figured out yet. So
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a little
Yeah.
bit struggle, even then once they start opening up that can of worms a little bit. So yes, sir.
Yep. Chris, if you were getting paid NIL money, that would have been a lot of McDoubles at that time, man.
And
Right,
and the
right.
funny thing, Troy, you would have been calling me up like, "Hey, let's go eat." So
Hey,
I'd have been, I'd have been, I'd have been telling you to buy me one too. I wouldn't want to spend my NIL money.
hey, talking about the 41-year-olds coming out, with my 2 years of junior college, I still have 2 years of eligibility. Why now? With all this NIL money. Might get myself
Yeah,
in
man.
shape again and go play some college football, so
Put it on the line. I
yes,
joke
sir.
around with my colleagues too. I'm like, well, since I started this podcast, guys, I'm like, I have a year of eligibility left. So in order to get this podcast going, and I'm gonna like go behind the scenes, and I'm gonna, walk on a team. I'm gonna walk on an OU for
Ex
this last year, just get
There you go.
just get rocked all the time. But yeah, well, no. So it's crazy. The NIL world is crazy right now. Hopefully we
Yes,
figure it out, because yeah, unfortunately I think it's gonna hurt football.
definitely,
yeah.
definitely. It's
So well,
it's changed, I'm sure too, because like we talked about, we come from a generation where if we would have had that, oh my goodness, my time would have been nothing but eat shit, sleep, football. Excuse my language, my French there. But yeah, I mean, it's just the way these kids have it nowadays. And that's the things that I try to tell my kids. I'm like, you guys haven't made these days, like
yeah.
goodness gracious, from the video camera. Cause I even have my dad back with his VHS camera recording me and stuff like that to with the things that they have nowadays, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a world of change, you know what I'm saying? And I think like you said it earlier, if, you're going to be a head coach and anything, you got to be able to adapt to these kids and understand, what they're coming from and what they want, what they expect and stuff like that. Because if not, I think you're just gonna be in a whirlwind, So yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
Well, oh, go ahead, Troy.
No, you're good, man.
No, I was gonna say, well, coach, now you're part of those guys family. So
Yes, sir.
definitely continue to follow up with our episodes and follow up with us. And
Yes, sir.
coach, wherever your journey takes you, Troy and I are definitely going to be fans. And we want to follow up with you as well. So
Definitely, and I appreciate it. Thank you guys, for listening to the story and letting me get it out there. I really appreciate it. So thank you, gentlemen.
Yes, sir. No, like I said, thank you for coming on the show, man. We do appreciate it.
Yeah, not a problem at all. I've had fun with you guys talking about everything, just it's been great, you know what I'm saying? So don't count me out for another one if you ever need another chat because I got stories for days. I could talk football for days with you guys. Not a
That
problem, so
that's
not a
awesome.
problem.
That's us too, man. That's kind of why
Yeah.
we started this whole
yes.
ordeal.
Yeah, and I'll tell you a Europe, European football about a little bit about over there. What's kind of neat about over there is, you get to play in the soccer stadiums at all the big time, city champion league, all that stuff. Since I live in Munich, I got to sit there and go play in the Munich stadiums and stuff like that. And I mean, you
Mm.
just what's kind of cool about it is the soccer hooligans that you get to see out there for soccer, with their horns being loud.
Yeah.
German beers, they like to get drunk and have a good time. So that was the cool thing about it is they be out, they can barely say my last name. They're like, Frias, Frias, Fries. And I'm like, it's Frias, I'm Mexican, so yeah, it was a great atmosphere. You had a lot of fans, a lot of good times. Like I said, they treated you like the Tom Brady out there, so I think that was the one thing that was really cool about that. And like you said, it's growing out there. What's cool about that too is you got a lot of guys that either played NFL or D1 that don't get a chance that have an opportunity out there. Because I'm going to tell you one guy that you guys might know of. Kevontae Turpin for the Dallas Cowboys. He's
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
receiver and everything. He was out there playing in the European League of Football, got a shot at the UFL, made the UFL, then now he's on the Dallas Cowboys, So
That's
to the
awesome.
kids
Wow.
and people out there that are listening, you know what I'm saying? Don't give up because I think there's always opportunity and chance, just keep running with it, So yeah,
Heck yeah. No, that's awesome. Well,
definitely.
once again, Coach, we appreciate you. We appreciate you coming on. I'm sure this ain't gonna be the last time we see you on the show.
Definitely. Yeah, like I said, anytime you guys want to sit there and chat it up, I got stories for days. So, and I appreciate you guys sitting there and, thinking about me and bringing me on. I've had a great time with you guys. So thank you.
Definitely.
Definitely, coach.
All right.
Take care.
Well, guys, you guys heard it from Coach Frias. So stay tuned to our next episode and our next guest. It'll be quite the surprise.